Welcome to another episode of Viatorian Voices Conversations on the Way. This episode is another Roundtable on the Way, a more in-depth feature to explore things a little further than we can squeeze into the usual 15 minutes. This Roundtable is one of a three-part special to mark National Vocations Awareness Week, an effort to increase mindfulness of vocational discernment and encourage people to explore God's ongoing invitations for them and respond with lives of loving service. In this first part of these NVAW Roundtables, we explore Viatorian religious life. For this topic, we have three guests. Brother Peter Lamech professed first vows in 2016. He serves the Viatorians as the Director of Vocation Ministry after serving as a teacher, coach, and learning specialist at Viatorian high schools. Father Charlie Bolzer professed first vows in 1963. Father Charlie is semi-retired and living in Arlington Heights, but continuing to celebrate sacraments and support St. Viator High School as a chaplain. Brother Rob Robertson professed first vows in 1987. Brother Rob serves as a counselor at St. Viator High School and has served as a teacher, campus minister, and counselor at several Viatorian schools. We assembled these three to join perspectives from younger, middle, and older members and the viewpoints of various generations of Viatorians. You'll hear distinct insights from each of them, as well as a wonderfully common Viatorian thread. Enjoy the conversation. So I thought maybe a good first question might be, not just what drew you to religious life or what drew you to this vocation, but what drew you to Viatorian religious life? If you have some recollection of what about the Viatorian community drew you in particular. All right, we'll cut it right there.
We'll defer to our elder. You knew Father Curbs in St. Viator.
Yeah, I knew Father Curbs. Yes. After, I'm never sure what drew me to the Viatorians, but after high school, I enlisted in the Air Force, spent 3 years in Europe, and the anniversary date is today, that John Paul XXIII was installed as Pope, and I happened to be there for that installation. And that was a very powerful impression. I was just visiting all over Europe and Rome and seeing the church and the world. And then coming back, and I went to work for the post office, and I joined the Knights of Columbus, and they had a big retreat down there. And I went on retreat, and I decided I needed to get away from being the post office employee and do something more meaningful. I had never heard of the Viatorians. But I knew that there were some priests in Peoria, and I called my cousin over there. She introduced me to a couple of Viatorians. And they introduced me to others, and then I said, well, I'll give it a shot. And I'm still giving it a shot.
Good for you. Well, I'm very similar to you, Charlie. I did not know any Viatorians as well growing up. So it's kind of weird how God works in drawing us towards the Viatorians. I was not Catholic growing up, so I didn't even have that going for me whenever I was a youngster. But my first job out of college was working in a Catholic high school. And the Catholic high school was administered by the Viatorian priests and brothers. So whenever you asked the question, what drew me to Viatorian religious life, they were the only religious order I knew. I did not know there were other religious orders, to be quite honest. I only knew Viatorians. And I found the guys I worked with at Griffin High School just to be a really great mentors and educators. I was a teacher. That's what I was trained to be. I wanted to be a teacher. And when I started feeling this call to religious life, there was no other religious order that I knew about. And that was what I was drawn to the Viatorian, because it was the only ones I knew. So.
I first met the Viatorians as a student at St. Viator High School. First in the classroom of Brother Michael Gosh, my literature teacher. He was like a teacher I had never had before. He was this force of energy, very also competent and effective. He was this combination of both just kind of this exuberant, constant joy, while also like he really knew his stuff, and I really felt like I was learning. It was the best of both. And then again later in high school, I had Brother Rule, another great literature teacher at St. Viator. Now my sister Carla had Brother Rule for 4 years of homeroom, and my sister Victoria had Brother Rule for lit class as well. So three of us Lamechs had Brother Rule. He was, and probably even through all of college, I would consider maybe the best teacher I've ever had. He was so knowledgeable, and I would say for the first time of being in the classroom, I was excited to go to class. I remember sitting in homeroom with this kid, Pat Guth, and coming back from his class and going, this is incredible. I've never had a teacher like this before. And I just went on and on for the whole homeroom about how I loved his class. And Pat's like, wow, you really like literature. And I'm like, yeah. And I would say before that, like, I never even like read books, other than stuff I had to read. And that was kind of the first time I really started to read for just like the sake of reading. And I would say he really taught me like how to read. He would get in all of these like motifs and themes, and I even think about him when I'm watching like a TV show or a movie. All of these things that are embedded within the story. So Brother Gosh and Brother Rule made a very big impression on me. It's probably not a coincidence that I decided to go into teaching after I joined. Kind of the other part that I kind of already mentioned is having 4 siblings who also went to St. Viator High School. When I started to really think about religious life, and I told my family I was thinking about it, all of my siblings and my parents really encouraged me to explore the Viatorians. I would say it was a strong encouragement. It was, really, for my sisters and my brother, who all had Viatorian brothers and priests in the classroom, they were just very impressed by them in terms of like how relatable, but also competent they were in terms of being educators. So, I very much listened to my siblings and my parents, and, I contacted Father Corey, and he kind of got me going in the process. And like you said, Charlie, here I am,
Yes.
9 years later.
You were ruled.
Yeah, I was ruled. Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
So how would you say that your perception of the community through the men that you first got to know and the early experiences you had, how does that match up with what you discovered as you got a few years further into religious life and now as a perpetually professed and further on? How did that understanding match what you first saw, but how did it maybe develop and grow as you got to know more men and get more involved in ministries?
There's a lot of change when I entered. This was before Vatican II, and it was a very structured community. I kind of was on the edge there for a while. But I was in Griffin High School in Springfield for 3 years, and I met the Viatorian community in full force at that point. And that was a different church at that time, a different community. And it has changed radically since then. But when I first went down Many of the men wore their castics full time in the classroom, the collar, and the church was rules and regulations and obedience. And it's since Vatican II and over the intervening years, been a lot of change, a lot of openness to the world and to the faith.
I think for me, what really attracted me to the Viatorian religious life, again, I was working at Griffin High School in Springfield, Illinois, and the community of Viatorians who were working there at that time was a large number of Viatorians, and they were a pretty steady group who had been there for a number of years. And they really lived community well. They were so inviting, so welcoming. To me as a young lay person, inviting me to experience how they lived their life, inviting me to dinner, getting to know me. And when I would go to their house, I think there were 13 of them living there at the time. No, I think there were 10 because there were 10 at the time. But I always enjoyed going there and watching the camaraderie amongst them, and they seemed to enjoy one another's company. They got along well. And so when I was invited to think about joining, I was able to move in with them. At that time, we were called affiliates. Now, young men are called pre-novices. I was lucky enough to move in to that house with 2 other young men. And so there were 13 of us living there. And that still was one of my best experiences of community life. There were men of all ages, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And it was just a very happy, fulfilling year of watching how much care people had for one another, the joy of the dinner conversation, watching television together, the joking with one another. It was like a very nice family atmosphere. And I think that's what encouraged me to take the next step of saying, I want to be part of this. I felt like I'd found a place where I could feel welcomed, where I belonged, and where I knew I could grow not only in my faith, but in who I was, and felt that people really cared about me. So that's what I found when I first met the Viatorians and lived with them. And I've had those experiences over the years in various communities where I've lived since then. So that's what I have seen.
For me, I guess a couple things come to mind when I was just starting out in those first few years as a Viatorian. One of them is when Brother Gosh and a few other Viatorians connected me with young men who were seeking asylum in the United States. I had the opportunity to meet all these young men from all these different places in the world who each had their own story. And for different reasons, each sought refuge here in the United States in order to, seek a better life. It was such an eye-opening experience to what was going on and is going on in the world. Along with that, we would go and visit these unaccompanied minor shelters throughout Chicago. And I remember just for the first time walking into this room with all of the kids from toddler age all the way up to 17, and the reality of what was going on in the world was really a moment where I felt this invitation from God to really make a decision about who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do with my life. And in a way, this kind of decision, I could go along and live a good life and be indifferent towards suffering towards what's going on in the world, or I can continue to be a part of this community that was paying attention. So it was, I credit the mentoring of Viatorians in my early years to open my eyes to things that I was just totally unaware of, and to to open my eyes to kind of the different issues of what was going on in the world, and to be a part of a community that was really trying to meet these people's needs. I guess the kind of the other part is when I started to begin my preparation to be a teacher at St. Viator High School. It was a different situation of being people's colleagues, being with other Viatorians, and now with other teachers and staff members, and the profound respect they had for the community, and the profound respect they had for the brothers and the priests, for all the Viatorians. It gave me a deeper appreciation for the community that has been built there, and the communities that we have built. There's something so unique about the communities that we try to raise up. You talk about our mission as raising up communities where faith is lived, deepened, and celebrated. But I think they're communities in which people feel that we care about them. People feel like we walk right alongside them, that we're not just asking people to do things, but we do it right alongside them. And communities, I think, where people feel a sense of comfort in our presence and leadership, that we bring a set of values and the way we care and have compassion for people that I think people really they buy into. They it's very much in agreement with their kind of vision for who we should be as church. So just starting out as a new guy, so to speak, at the high school was also an eye-opening experience to really the bigger impact that we are able to have as a community beyond just individual ministry. Individual ministry is wonderful, but what we can do as a community can really change a whole community.
Mm-hmm.
I taught a lot of teenagers who would complain about the church or complain about their life of faith. And sometimes my response to them was, I don't know that you've seen church life or faith life lived well. You haven't seen a good model for it. And I think those of us who went to St. Viator High School had a very close up good model of church life and faith life in our Viatorians that were our teachers and campus ministers, and in the community that they raised for us to grow in. And it's a great blessing to those of us who are alumni, and to the students who keep going there now. I think people kind of get a sense of what religious life's ministries are, but maybe they don't necessarily see so much of religious life in terms of its community life. And you have named parts of your community lives that are nourishing to you and help you to find your fulfillment in your vocation. Can you connect the dots a little bit for us? Like, for example, how would you say that like dinner table conversation and family room social time actually can have an impact on the type of ministry and the way that the mission of the Viatorians unfolds in the world? How do you connect the dots a little bit for people who aren't on the inside of religious life and might not have a sense for that?
Well, I remember Griffin High School as a community. And I was there for 9 years, 3 years there originally, 3 years back for theology, and then come back for 6 more. And it was an excellent community of people. Very different. The diversity was immense, but good people coming together, caring about each other. And they cared about life. And then I saw at the same time the community extended in St. George Parish or in Rochester and other parishes where the community was still alive. And Father Ed Hygen, who was the principal when I went there, was a pastor now of a small parish. But he loved the people and they loved him. And it was a sense of belonging, a sense of caring about life and about the people and working together to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just one other thing too. I saw people like Pat Cahill over at St. Viator and Gene Lutz. And Gene Lutz worked out at Passaic Bay when I knew him originally. And he helped establish a place, a retreat house, for 12-step program. The people out there love him. They've already canonized him. Whether Rome has or not, they've canonized him. But they saw Gene Lutz as somebody who was a veteran of World War II, a POW, involved in war and violence, coming back and helping people in a very real way on retreats and the property there. And one of the men that worked with him, Brother Pat Rohan, is still there after 60 years. And they still have the retreats for the 12-step program now. And they do a great job there.
Yeah.
And that's Pat Rohan and Gene Lutz and people like that, or not always in the high school, but other places, yeah.
This is the ongoing tension of religious life, ministry versus community life. We join religious life to be ministers. Many of us do. But we can't really, in my opinion, do good ministry without a strong community life. And that's the big tension, because many of us want to give. And then we come home and we're tired. And there's nothing left to give to those we live with. And so there's always this ongoing tension of how do we balance giving to those in the community, but also the important aspect of giving to those in the community. Because it's not going to work if we're just out there. Because I could be a teacher and not be a Viatorian. I could be a social worker and not be a Viatorian. I could be a principal and not be a Viatorian. But I joined religious life to be part of a community, and it means more than just going to work every day. And that's the part that takes a lot of intentionality. It takes a commitment to more than just getting up and going to work. It means coming home, and even when I don't want to be around people who I didn't choose, as Charlie said, being at the dinner table, being in the TV room, conversing, saying, let's go out to dinner, let's do this, because we are our family. You know, when we join religious life, we're saying, this is my family now. And without that, I personally don't believe we can do anything well. But that's me. And sometimes that causes tension in religious life, because you can't just join religious life and then go off on your own and do whatever you want, because you're responsible to those you've made a commitment to. When you put this ring on your finger, you're saying, I'm part of this, not a lone ranger. So that's a tension, but it's a tension that's worth fighting for, I guess I want to say. It's worth living, because when it's good, but it's worth it.
Yeah, for me, I guess when I think about the connection between ministry and like community, I think one of them is just like, I don't know, what you really, really love by what you talk about. And when we're at the dinner table or in the car or in the community room just hanging out or watching TV, what do we talk about? We talk about mission. We talk about ministry experiences. We talk about, our dreams. Well, we could do this. Imagine if we could do this. And I would say it's pretty like constant. Yeah, we talk about what's in the news and, what's going on in the world. But in terms of like, our schools, our parishes, Viter House of Hospitality, we seem to be always discussing about, kind of what's going on, and kind of where we could take it. It's so I can tell just over the years and in the communities I've lived in, we do definitely love ministry and we love talking about it with one another. The other part is, and this kind of connects with this. It's a comfort to know at the end of the day that I do have people to talk to and share it with. If I had an experience, whether difficult or a blessing that happened, as a teacher or as a coach or, on a retreat or something, it's a real comfort to be able to go home and to sit down and share it. And I'll find myself, having a certain experience on a retreat, and I look forward to returning home to talk about it.
Yes.
And the other part is like, we are real people. I'm a real person. You're both real people. And real people experience doubt, disappointment, frustration, failure. We come across dilemmas in ministry where it's also a real comfort to know that I don't have to figure it out all on my own.
Right.
That I can come home and bring it up to the guys I live with in community and say, oh, this was hard, or what do you think I should do here? Mm-hmm. It's also one of the blessings of intergenerational living, that typically as you go up in years, experiences and wisdom is acquired, and you always have someone in the community who can help mentor you. Especially in religious life, we're always kind of a lot of times in transition from one ministry to the next. Could be one school to the next, one place to the next. Like the people that you live with in community are just a real, they provide a foundation. They provide a stability, so to speak. We don't take a vow of stability, but that fellowship, that taking time for prayer, that taking time to just be with one another, for me is a stabilizing factor that enables me to give myself away in the ministry.
And that bass was 12 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Even to share, ridiculous stories of being the bass fishing coach and not knowing how to navigate the boat, and going in circles.
Well, and I know for me, I mean, you talk about, looking up for mentors and everything, and that's true, but we also get a lot of things from the younger guys. I mean, the things that you have added to our lives, being, one of the younger ones in the community. I mean, we don't take that for granted either. You give a lot of credit to the older guys and, the mentorship you get, but we don't take for granted what you bring to us as well. The hope and the excitement that you bring to things when sometimes we get tired and want to give up too easily. And the excitement and enthusiasm that we still see in you and some of the other younger ones keeps us going. Yeah. And so, that's a great part. And I know for me, when I'm away, maybe visiting family or whatever, I literally miss the people I live with. I mean, I miss my community. I mean, I could not imagine not being in a community. I literally miss the people. I mean, I'll find myself when I'm away texting the people I live with, wanting to share something that's going on, like, oh, this is going on, or this is going on, or what's happening here. I mean, it's like, okay, I miss these people. So I think that's an important thing that people don't realize. We're not just, working and ministering, we're literally sharing a life together. And I think that's important for people to know about our ministry and our community. It's not just, oh, these guys all live together and they go to work. We're sharing life together. And I think that's an important thing for people to know.
Just as an aside, as someone who's retired, theoretically, and I live with 10 people that are semi-retired or retired, and different stages of retirement, I get fed with the energy by going to visit the school. That energy of the students, of the faculty, and I see all that activity and all the noise and the celebration of life. I just see it going on all the time. It feeds me and gives me courage and gives me hope. It's a community for me. And I may not know the names, but it doesn't matter. They feed me in a very real way. I need that. I need you young Viatorians, the same thing.
Okay, I'm 67.
You're still a young Viatorian. You're still a young Viatorian.
It's still a young Victorian.
Okay.
Maybe maybe kind of one other thing, that that kind of I don't know. I guess I realized, or kind of maybe both realized and have been intentional about, that participation in community life, I think, is really important, so that the only time I'm living the gospel isn't in professional ministry.
Right.
I think it's so important that when I do come home, that there isn't like this bifurcation in my life where I have, this is the space in which I live these gospel values, that I have to, it's one lifestyle where I'm always living the gospel. And, to what extent am I living the gospel if I don't care for the people I'm literally living with? So, and that's where, Brother Rob, you were saying, ministry can sometimes be draining. And I think that's why we have to be extra intentional in order to be attentive, to really listen to one another, and support one another, and making sure that we're not just roommates, but we're brothers.
Right.
There's a wisdom to it. I think there's a real wisdom, and I think the way religious life has, developed and evolved, that community piece, I think it's always been a facet of religious life, and I think there's been a purpose to that. And I think when it does, that community dynamic does kind of weaken, I think our presence, our mission, kind of weakens with it. So, when we talk about moving into the future, I think it's always a both and. They go together.
So what would you say, based on the ministries you're a part of, the communities that you've lived in, the men that you've known over your years, what is the lived spirituality of the Viatorians? Because we have these great documents that are these beautiful meditations by men who went before us, groups of men, councils, chapters, and they have this lovely way of kind of describing a spirituality that we're called to. But how do you actually see the Viatorian spirituality lived out by men that you've lived with, worked with, and come through religious life with? What is the lived spirituality of the Viatorians in practice?
Oh, wise ones.
Yeah, right.
No pressure, Charlie.
I think it's different for everyone. And I don't think everybody thinks alike, exactly alike, or it has the same vision. And, I look around the universe, the world, and see constant change. I see that spirit of life constantly moving, changing, developing. I mean, we constantly are adapting. I think we're in the middle, quite frankly, of a radical change in the church right now and in our community, with the shrinking numbers and the whole idea of what do we do here as the laity are becoming more and more prominent in the role of the church, seen through the synods and the different activities, and the struggle for all that. But we as a community even are open to laity coming in and walking with us as partners. And so we're not just those in the vows, we're also those with the church. As Vatican II said, the church is the people of God, all of us. And I think we have a role to play still. But I think it's also that role of looking at that spirit moving us and changing us and inviting the laity to walk with us and to share with us our mission in educating, in welcoming the community and being part of that community. And so I think that's a shift that goes back from the time that I entered to today. It's not the same, it's different. But there's also that sense of looking at that spirituality of God's walking, God not up there in the heaven up there, but here on the world, in the earth, among us, walking with us. And the community is much wider than we are, but we're one very important part of that community. But we're also part of other communities too with us. And that spirit unites us in that way.
I mean, I do really believe that our founder, Father Curbs, had a vision of church that very much embodied what took place at Vatican II in terms of his vision of laymen and women and clergy and religious brothers in this instance collaborating together, working together to serve God's people. I think he had a sense of that universal call to holiness, the sense of people's baptismal call. I think he had an attentiveness to see that the liturgy had an important role in evangelization, and even lay people helping within the liturgy itself. I think his attentiveness to the youth and catechesis. Father Curbs' his spirituality was very, I think, ahead of his times.
Oh yeah, I think so.
And I do see the kind of enduring, kind of, in a way, vision or values that persist to the present day. When we talk about lived spirituality, I guess for maybe some particulars would be helpful, of for me, when I think about, being a Viatorian over the years, seeing how we walk with people, how we relate to people. There's a real, maybe we use the word humility. I don't know. We have a natural sense of just being with people. And people are comfortable around us. This is a phrase that started to be used with, after Pope Paul VI, Popular Progressio, integral human development. Something I see in common to all Viatorians, whether you're a pastor or you're a president or you're a teacher, is we all have this profound, deep desire to support and help people grow, regardless of the situation that you're in or they're in. Rob, whether you're a counselor and you're trying to help a kid take the next step, or you're a teacher and you're trying to help that kid just learn that next concept, or you're a president and you're trying to shape a culture that allows everybody to flourish. That, for me, that's a lived spirituality. That's that's the incarnation of God is with us, and it's a sense of wanting people to grow and to flourish and to have peace and joy and love in their life. But I think it starts with what, like you said, being with people
Oh,
and
yeah.
entering into people's lives.
It's reading the signs of the times. The times change.
Yeah.
And how do we deal with that?
And I think along with that, as a religious community, I think people want to see us as an example of that.
Mhm.
Not only walking with them, which I totally agree that we do, but I think they want to look at us as this is possible. You know, seeing us as a group doing the things and saying, oh, look, they're doing that, showing us how it can be done amongst this group of men, praying together, ministering together, looking for ways to reach out to those of little importance. If we can do that and get along with each other and not kill each other, then I think that's an example for those we walk beside that, oh, this is how we do it. Otherwise, what's the purpose of religious orders if we can't be models for the people we walk with? We're kind of like the petri dish. You know, let's put these guys all together and see if they can't make this stuff work, then it's not going to work in the real world. You know, that's the way I kind of see our role as we can we pray together? Can we live together? Can we put together a school? Can we put together social ministry things? If we can do those things and invite people to do it with us, I think that they say, this is possible. That's the way I kind of look at our role in this big thing. Otherwise, what place is there for us?
Yeah, I totally agree. There is and needs to be a prophetic dimension to us as a community,
Right.
you know, and to us as individuals. And that's where, like, of course, we want to continue to invite people to consider religious
Right.
life. Absolutely. We want to invite people to become, you know, brothers and priests with us. But I think maybe even first and foremost is like continuing to be attentive to how authentic we are
Absolutely.
within our communities.
Yes.
That authenticity, you know, it needs to be primary in the way we're the value carriers.
Exactly.
One of the things I noticed, and I noticed it very strongly, we have been throughout Illinois, 5 different high schools in Las Vegas, and parishes in all these places. We're still remembered.
Mm.
People still connect with
Right.
me.
Right.
They'll call me or send me an email, and there's a memory that they have that they want to talk about. But they still connect with the Viatorians. They remember that Viatorian presence.
Right.
And I've heard people, as an example, in St. Joe's Parish in Springfield, when we left there, they felt a void. There was something missing, a sense of community, a sense of belonging. And I heard that same story in Las Vegas when we left the parish there recently. And there was something that people said, the Viatorians, they have a whole different approach that they recognize and they value.
Well, and that's why I agree with you, Peter, that we still have a place in this church, and there's still a reason to invite people to be Viatorians. We are the prophetic witnesses for the world. Other people can do things, but we need to be the prophetic witnesses to walk with people, but let them see this is possible. We need to get people to join us, invite people, and let them know this life is valuable. It is valuable not only for the church, but for the world. And that's what our role is as religious. And it's got to be intentional amongst us to show people there's value in this life.
So drawing on that portrait of religious life, what would you say to a young man who is trying to figure out, is God inviting me to consider religious life? What is there in the Viatorian community among the congregation for a young man to discover and experience in terms of what's there for himself and who God made him to be and what he can become, but also in what he can do together with other Viatorians in service of the people of God and the world?
Good one.
For me, and I think all of us have kind of said it in our own ways, take the little step. You know,
No.
I took a step 37 years ago and it fit. And each step, it's like as long as it fits, you stay, you know, and people never know until they try. I mean, if it feels right, give it a shot. And as long as it feels right, you know, it's something that you'll find life with the Viatorians. If you feel called, you give it a shot. You know, there are steps that you take until you make final vows or move on. But I think there's enough good in religious life. There's enough support. There's enough ministry to keep someone engaged in their discernment to really know, does this work for me?
That's what I said a long time ago, 60 years ago.
And you're still here?
I said, give it a shot every day.
Same
I'm
with
still
me.
giving it a shot every day.
Same with me.
And I still find it worthwhile.
Yeah.
That's this is the whole package. And you really can't tell the future where it's going to lead you because the world and the church changes and so on. We have to adapt to that. But there is also that sense of yourself and being led by the Spirit to how do we do that as a community. I can't do it by myself. None of us can. We need each other. And our mission is very specific. It's proclaim the good news. You know, it's who we are. But we do it within a community. And we try. And I see people, today, it's not the 18-year-olds. It's people who may be 30s and 40s who are looking. They're older generation. When they were 18 or 19 or 20, in the old days, we wanted a high school graduate right into the Viatorians. And today, that's changing. But it's not just changing with us. It's changing everywhere. And how do we adapt to that? But how do we open our arms then to let people know that you, 35 years old, you've done a lot in the world? Come and try it. Give it a shot. We need you. The world needs you.
Yeah, I think some like concrete ways to kind of explore, your call to religious life. Coming over for dinner and prayer, sitting alongside us, talking about the day, listening to stories about our ministry, praying with us, spending some time, get to know us, to kind of enter into that space with us and to see kind of what do you think? What do you feel? What's going on inside you? And then to get actually involved in doing some volunteer and service work. For us, we're very passionate about youth ministry, and we're very passionate about connecting youth to the underserved. To go with us and serve, and again, to kind of pay attention to what's going on in your heart. What are you thinking? For me, when I went to dinner and prayer, when I went to go do youth ministry and connect youth to the underserved, I felt this growing joy and this desire to continue to follow the path. Now I think I'm at a point where I am absolutely convinced that our charism, our Viatorian charism, is what the church needs. And I'm absolutely convinced that the church needs to be focused on young people, on connecting young people to those who are underserved. And I think the way in which we do it, the operative kind of dimension of how we do ministry, I think it's what the church needs as we, continue to move forward.
It's more than what the church needs, it's what the world needs. I look at the world we live in, politics, business, economics, corporate mindsets. How do our students make a difference in the world they live in as they graduate? What are we sharing with them? What thought process, what vision that they're called, they're gifted. But is it just a gift to enlarge me so I can be Speaker of the House? Or so I can make billions of dollars? What is it we're calling these young people to and sharing with them that vision, as you say, that mission, to enlarge their vision of what they can be and what the world is calling them to be?
When I was preparing this presentation to ninth graders at St. Viator High School, and I was really taking some time to think about, well, what do I want to share with them? What do I want to talk about? And I gravitated towards talking about our alumni, and to talk about a number of our alumni who really, I believe, exemplify our values as Viatorians and are making a significant difference in the world. And first, it was hard to whittle it down because there were so many people. But I had this moment when I put the presentation together where I said, where it just kind of hit me of the difference our charism has made in the world. Like the culture in which we built in our schools and in the community is what sets people up and young people for going out into the world and striving to make a difference. And not that I had necessarily a fear with that of losing it, but more of how important it is and how we need to continue to nurture it. Our charism is needed. You're right. The world needs our charism.
I saw that directly when I was working in Las Vegas, at a high school in Las Vegas. And I got to know a lot of casino owners, very wealthy people. But I also got to see another side of them. They weren't just there grabbing money. They were there taking money, but they were sharing it. They were giving it away. They were helping people. And I saw that directly. And they were very generous in their ideas. They see some people, they need help, they were going to help them. And so they were collecting money for themselves, certainly. But they had no problem looking around and seeing the pain, the struggle, and helping, healing, and making whole. So they were our graduates, as you say.
That's all for this installment of Roundtables on the Way. We thank Brother Peter, Father Charlie, and Brother Rob for their witness. We pray for all our professed Viatorians worldwide, and we invite you to pray with us for continued vocations to Viatorian religious life. Please consider praying a Hail Mary each day, asking Our Lady of Grace, Our Lady of Guadalupe for her intercession on behalf of our congregation. Viatorian Voices Conversations on the Way is a production of Viatorian Vocation Ministry. The Viatorians are professed brothers and priests, together with women and men lay associates, who proclaim Jesus Christ and his gospel and raise communities where faith is lived, deepened, and celebrated. In the footsteps of Venerable Louis Querbes and under the patronage of St. Viator, we strive to do everything well so that through us, Jesus may be adored and loved. To learn more about our community, visit Viatorians.com or follow us on social media at Viatorian USA. Those seeking support and accompaniment in exploring God's invitation for them are invited to reach out to Vocation Ministry. Send us a DM on social media or email vocations@Viatorians.com to start a conversation. Young adults seeking to engage with the Viatorians and other young adults can request to follow our private Instagram at Viatorian YA on the way to connect in. On behalf of Brother Peter and the Viatorian community, I'm Pre-Associate Dan Masterton. Venerable Louis Curbs, inspire us. St. Viator, pray for us. Adored and loved be Jesus.